They actually have a plan for today's Nice Guys on Business podcast. You don't want to miss it.
I mean, it's night and day difference. When you go beyond that and you have someone that's on your team, like myself or like my firm, that is helping you really look at your numbers, analyze what's going on in the business, what are the things that we're strong in, what are our weaknesses, and really start to improve on the weaknesses, right? There's a common saying out there, what you focus on and what you measure gets better, right? Well, having a CFO on your team or a part-time CFO that's going to come in and help you do those things and look at those weaknesses is just the start of your journey there, working with more advanced financial professionals.
So let me ask you, do you believe in UFOs, astral projections, mental telepathy, ESP, clairvoyance, spirit photography, telekinetic movement, full trance mediums, the Loch Ness Monster, and the Nice Guys on Business? Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community, do you equate harder work, longer hours, and more efforting to potential greater success? Now, if so, would you be open to another way? Ryan Kimler, he is our guest today. He actually was a past guest, episode 1299. I just checked it out on Spotify. He helps you enjoy more net profit without working longer or harder in your business. Ryan is an outside CFO. Now, a CFO is someone that tracks profit and cash flow. He analyzes your company's financial strengths and weaknesses and proposes corrective action. He helps you wear less hats in your business and give you one clear path on what you should be doing next. Crush it in business instead of your business crushing you. Ryan, I'm excited to chat with you again. Welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this. And I mean, anytime I get an opportunity to add value to business owners and, help them in an area where most business owners don't love, right? And help them in an area where, probably not an area of strength for most business owners. I love to do it. And thank you for taking the time. I'm excited to do it and be a guest and happy to do it.
Yeah, man. So let's come up with, just for a second, what you're not. A lot of people think about, when they think about money, they think about, oh, this is great. I have somebody that knows accounting and knows tax and knows all of that stuff. So let's talk about what you're not for just a moment. Can you clearly define what a CFO is and does?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few things that we are not. We all most likely have an accounting and finance background, just like you just highlighted, right? Just as I do. But a few things that I am not. I am not your bookkeeper. So I am not categorizing transactions for you. You're not going to send me your expense reports, right? And I'm not putting together financial statements for you. Okay. I am not your tax accountant either. Okay. So I am not the one that, is putting all the numbers into the return and making sure that gets filed with the IRS and with your state. I am not doing those things. All right. Then to kind of get into the side of what I really do, it's really almost like a business coach, but really approaching it from finances and a data side, right? So it's not just, business coaches, a lot of them are fantastic at sales or leadership or organization operations. And I work with a lot of business coaches. I love to work with them. When I bring something to the table for a business owner, it's always going to be backed by data. It's always, hey, I know that this is the piece that's broken in your business because I can see it in the finances, right? Mm-hmm. And so, as you mentioned in my intro, I really do give business owners one clear path forward to really fix their business and really add more profits, more cash flow. And, we can go into more details on, what that process looks like. It's a six-step process, but really gives the business owner one clear path forward so that they know what to focus on that's really going to make a financial impact in their business.
So let's talk to two categories of people that might be listening and in our audience. The first category is the early stage entrepreneur that's just trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills and pay their expenses. And then you have the later stage entrepreneur that's got things going. They're probably at a six-figure income, but they just can't figure out, where are the holes that they are missing. So let's talk to the early stage person for just a second. What areas can you help somebody that is at that level benefit from their business or from what they got going on?
Sure. So I would say place to start with them is really probably product and service fit, right? And really getting a judge for, is it demanded in the marketplace that you're in? And are you servicing it right? And are you priced right?
Do you sometimes, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there, but you brought up a valid point. Do you sometimes introduce your services to someone even before they've launched a product or service to try to figure out if there is some white space in the market? Can somebody come to you and ask you for that? Or is that not a focus of what you provide?
Yeah, that's really not been a focus of mine. I know that there are some CFOs out there that do just that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really been a focus of mine. I'm really working with business owners that have already started, right, and already kind of been established.
That beginning part of the business, though, that's got to be such a challenge because sometimes it's a matter of pricing something right, pricing it effectively, making sure that you have enough margin once you've done it all. Sometimes you have enough margin if it's just you and the business, and then you introduce an operations manager or somebody on the team, and now you've eaten all of your profit up with a team member, taking away the additional opportunity for you to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are a lot of solo business owners that they get stuck in the startup phase. They just, as you just mentioned, right, there's enough profit in it for them and they're not priced right to really build a team, right? And a lot of times they're just trying to survive, right? And they never get to that next stage of business, which is really scaling up and optimizing. And it's easy to get stuck there for sure.
So talk to the experienced entrepreneur, the one that has a good income coming in the door. They have several team members, and they're just working on, okay, now I need to start working a little bit more on the business as opposed to in the business every day. Where do you play a role in that type of company?
Yeah, so I would say for most of them, they probably have never had the financial team in place that they really need, right? They probably have what I would call the bare minimum requirements, which is, your bookkeeper and your tax preparer, right? Basically, what are the minimum positions that I have to stay in compliance and stay out of trouble, right?
Yeah.
So most have probably not went beyond that, right? But when you do go beyond that, your business, it's night and day difference. When you go beyond that and you have someone that's on your team, like myself or like my firm, that is helping you really look at your numbers, analyze what's going on in the business, what are the things that we're strong in, what are our weaknesses, and really start to improve on the weaknesses, right? There's a common saying out there, what you focus on and what you measure gets better, right? Well, having a CFO on your team or a part-time CFO that's going to come in and help you do those things and look at those weaknesses is just the start of your journey there, working with more advanced financial professionals.
What typically is a spot of contention or a place that somebody is not even thinking about? Because I'm sure that you have some common problems that you are solving when you go into an existing business and say, okay, let's look at these few things. What are those few things that you tend to look at first?
Yeah, so a lot of times they are tied together, and I just so happen to be reading a Forbes Small Business Advisor article not very long ago. So I've got some facts in my head because I'm a numbers person, right?
Right.
And so a couple things that I'll tell your audience. Number one, the average salary of a business owner is $10,000 higher than the median income.
Okay. All right. So
So
explain what that means.
So in other words, the average business owner could shut down their business and go get a job for $10,000 less a year.
Mm-hmm. and not have 99% of the headaches that they probably have as a business owner as opposed to a W-2 employee.
Yep, exactly. Not all the sacrifice of, all the extra time, headache, stress, all that kind of thing.
But
Right?
Ryan, the freedom of running your own business, the glory of that you're experiencing, all of those things go away completely when you're a W-2 employee. He
Yes,
says
they do.
sarcastically.
Yes, they do. I mean, they do, right? But, small business average, it's all done for 10 grand. 10 grand difference a year, right? And so that's number one. Number two, highest expenses to small businesses is labor. And right now the average is 70% of revenue goes to labor.
Wow.
Now, when you think about that, the revenue that you bring in the door is 100%.
Mm-hmm.
If 70% of it is going to labor immediately,
Mm-hmm.
you're left with 30%. So if you're $1 million business, that means you're left with $300K for the year to pay for, your what I'll call your overhead expenses, right? If you have a commercial space, softwares, computer, internet, utilities, right? To pay for all of that stuff, I call that overhead, and to pay for your marketing for your business.
Wow.
And to pay yourself.
Yeah, you don't. Does that include the 30%? Are the taxes have to come out of your 30% too, or is
Yep.
it? So
Yep. Taxes come out of your 30%.
all of that efforting for the, let's call it the $1 million business, and if only few companies actually arrive at that number, so you're being quite generous, but you rounded it up just to make it easy for number's sake. $700,000 going to labor, 300 grand. It's like, well, that's $300,000 that I get to take home. That sounds like a pretty good salary. Well, it really isn't, because now you have all of the other stuff that comes out of it. Marketing alone could be 25% of your, not the remaining budget, your overall $1 million. You could be spending 200 grand just in marketing alone.
Yep.
So yeah, you can see how quickly it gets whittled away. So when you see that, sorry, did you have more stats? Because I just opened up a whole bunch of opportunity in my brain for there's other questions that I have, but are there other stats that you have from that Forbes magazine?
I mean, those are the top couple of two that to answer your question on what are the things that I look at, that's always my starting place, right?
Okay.
Is because of those facts, right?
All right. So then you have the 700 grand, let's say, of the $1 million that's coming in, or 70% that's going to labor. Is it as simple as going in and saying, well, you just need to reduce your labor costs? No, it's not. So how do you maneuver, manipulate, strategize with that business owner? And I know this part of this is the magic of what you do, but okay, you either need to bring in more money or reduce your percentage of your expenses. And how do you do either one of those things? Or where do you help with that?
Sure. So I don't like to cut expenses when we can avoid it. But payroll is always, one of the things that I'm going to look at because of that stat, right? Do we really have team members that are inefficient? It's also possible that, your marketing is not doing a good enough job to really take the team that you have and push them towards capacity.
Right.
And, with the average labor cost being 70%, the next thing we're going to look at too is, are you really priced right? Right. A lot of business owners, they go out on their own. They're able to do it when they're a solo business owner for X, right? And then they fall into the trap of not raising their prices enough when they hire talent, right? What that's telling me is you're not even charging 2x what you're paying your team.
Right.
Because if you were charging 2x, your payroll will be 50%. Right. So you're not even charging 2x of what you're paying your team, right? For the average business that's out there, right? So those are always the things that we're going to look at, right? I am not a believer that, sales cures all and more sales volume just fixes your problems, right? There are some times that is the case, but more often I want to look at market fit. Are you priced right? Are you paying your people right? If you were to have your biggest customer come to you tomorrow and say, hey, I want to do 10 times the volume with you that I am now. Are you ready for that? Do you want to do that? I mean, if you've got a business and you're keeping 10% of, that's net income, that's what you're putting in your pocket. And let's just say you're that $1 million business and you're keeping $100,000. If your biggest customer comes to you tomorrow and says, I want to do $10 million with you, like, I think my answer to that is no, I'm not ready for that, right? Because the idea that you're going to do 10 and keep one, that's a lot of work, right? Sales is more work.
Well, I think about it, and I'm putting all of the words and the processes that you say into the journey that Turnkey has been on over the last 8 years since we've been around, 10 years since we've had our podcast, but 8 years pretty much since we've had Turnkey. And as of the recording of this, and I think about the stuff that we did in the very beginning, the processes and systems that we had in place were highly inefficient. They were very efficient for 3 or 4 clients, but once we got 10 clients, then it's challenging. Imagine putting 40 clients in that, and then 50, and then 7. I think we're hovering somewhere around 70 or 75 clients in our production system right now. And to think about the labor that you're going to spend if we were running an inefficient email system and all of the communications processes and all the things that we were doing, and then we've found Monday.com, and I know you're a client of ours, and I know that you're immersed in Monday.
Yep.
We very rarely have to communicate individually with people because we have a process in place that takes care of much of that. It's better for our clients. It's better for us. And we think about it and think, man, we could do, if somebody came to us tomorrow, our biggest client, and said, hey, we are going to 10x what we're doing with you because we've come up with a new system, we would say, bring it on. We're ready. We're ready to go. We're working towards that right now to try to get it that way. So I understand. So do you get involved with maybe not the granular details of examining the systems, but do you get involved in I see you're not using a system or a process to cover this. Would this be something that you would be open to doing to help you reduce that 70% number?
Yeah, sometimes I do, especially when, like if I ask for a data point and the business owner says, I have no idea, we don't track that, right? Then I know, we're going to be running into some problems, right? Because it's like, we got to know what that number is, right? So sometimes I do. And also, part of the job of your part-time CFO, that's really, the leader of your finance department, but also is a strategic partner for you as the business owner. Part of their job is to bring in resources where you need them, right? Obviously I'm there to help you improve the profitability in your business, improve the cash flow so that you have the money to hire the right people, right tools. Right. And so a lot of times if it's really, really operational heavy, the system that we're talking about, and you as the business owner need some guidance there, I'm probably introducing you to some outside other business owners that specialize in that area. Right. I'm probably bringing in other experts to really guide us through that process.
You mentioned a really interesting word or 2 words just a moment ago, and I want to expand upon it for just a second because I think it's something really important that people understand what this means. You mentioned the words data point. So it sounds like those are I'm going to let you define it. What is a data point, and how many do we have in a typical business that need to be that we want to take a look at? Obviously, I think labor was one of those data points that we need to know more about. So what are the data points?
Yeah. So when I'm working with a business owner, I try to, your business probably has thousands of data points, right? I try to really narrow it down probably to 10 or 15 numbers that are really driving the results of the business that we need to look at and track on a very regular basis. And that's really for a couple reasons. Number one is really just for simplicity. I know as a business owner, you don't want to look at 100 numbers. Okay.
Right.
Because you're not most all of you are not numbers people, right? Like I am. So
totally not a numbers person. I would freak out if I was looking at 100 numbers. But if you say, here's the 10 numbers that we need to track on a regular basis, at least I can look at the graph of each of those numbers and start to understand, okay, well, we did more in X this month So Y needs to follow that or something like that. So I'm curious
Yep.
what these are.
Yep. Yeah. So typically, like I said, I try to narrow them down to 10 or 15. But when I start working with a client, I'm really doing a lot of analysis to figure out what are those 10 to 15, right?
Okay.
Because it can vary business to business on what are the ones that we really should be tracking. But a lot of the common ones, I always like to look at invoice volume, right? That's kind of your sales volume. And I like to look at average invoice price, right? So those two together are really going to give us how fast are we running this thing, right? What is, that those two things together feed into revenue or sales, right? So those are two of the top ones that are typically always on the scoreboard, right? That we're really looking at on a regular basis. Because if either one of those drops, we know that we're going to have a drop in revenue,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which then can lead to other problems. Obviously, less cash in the door if your expenses are maintaining or staying the same. You're probably going to have less profits or maybe even be approaching a loss, right? If either one of those things slows down. Um, then from the expense side, I'm always looking, as you mentioned, at payroll dollars, and not only at the dollars, but what percentage are we running at there, right? I mentioned the Forbes stat, obviously 70% is the average, right? And
That's
when
a
I look at
crazy
those,
number. That's just a crazy number. It just
it
seems like,
is.
I mean, I couldn't, Strickland does more of the dollars and cents, the numbers with our company, but I can't imagine 70% is the number with that. Just because I don't think he would accept that. I don't think he would allow that. It might be 30%, which is probably a much better number than 70% is the other way around for us. I could be wrong.
Sure. Yeah, you should probably go look at it. And I'm always looking at, that's everything, right? So when I say that, I'm not just talking wages, I'm talking taxes, health insurance, 401k, anything that goes, I mean, even workers' comp insurance, right? Anything that really goes to paying our people and paying personnel should be in your payroll bucket, right? Then I always like to look at our marketing and advertising, both in dollars and as a percentage of what is that as a percentage of revenue, right? Because that's going to give us, really a return on marketing spend, right? When we look at that with revenue.
How frequently are businesses, this is probably a negative question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How frequently are businesses failing? It seems like there is such an abundance of people that get in, they play the hokey pokey with their business. They're in one day, they're out the next, and they don't
Yep.
really give it the opportunity to grow. And I never understand that. I'm like, hey, look, are you all in or are you not all in with this thing? And if you're not all in, just stop now because it's going to require many all in years. But once you get it rolling, I do think, again, I think we're over the hump with turnkey. Those first 3 years, I kept going back to Strick and said, hey, give me that flywheel speech again. Tell me how hard it is in the beginning. But once we get it rolling, it's going to just helpfully run on its own. A lot of businesses fail. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah. 50% in 5 years. That's always the statistic that it seems to hang around. I believe the number is 20% in year one. But yeah, 50% by 5 years is normally the number that hangs around. So I mean, there are a lot of businesses that fail for sure, for sure. And I truly believe it's all because of a lack of financial management, right? And a lack of having the right financial team in place. Because every business that fails because it ran out of cash.
Where do you think the struggle comes in? People have the passion, and I know that they have the desire to want to continue and do their thing. But at what point does the passion fade away, and they have the hardcore? Now you're just going to have to, put this thing together and make sure it works. And if that's year two or year three or whatever, why is it that they give up at that point? They just don't see the results that they were hoping to get.
I think so. Yeah. But I think that also comes from, I mean, again, back to the numbers, right? I think most business owners, whether we want to admit it or not, we get into business to make money, right? I mean, most likely you see an opportunity for you to make more. You think you can make more money than what you were making at a job, right? And I think when the kind of results that we expected, as far as from a money standpoint, how much money we're making, didn't happen, right? Then you're probably losing that ambition to continue and go forward.
I do remember early on in this process writing, we had an operations manager for many years because some of those initial tasks and processes and systems neither Strick nor I knew how to put together. So we brought on somebody that had that experience. And once we got beyond that, we were able to the project. It wasn't a lifelong project; it was a several-year project, and we knew that going into it, and that was the expectation. And we think about all of those years that we were paying somebody before we were paying ourselves. You better be passionate about what you're doing in the beginning, and you better have another source of income in the beginning too, because until you get over that hump, you're not making enough money to support to support yourself.
Yep.
I just remember, and then I remember also the next step was, now that we have been doing this for several years, now it's important that we get out of the business and get out of working in the business and start working on the business, bringing in team members, staying in our zone of genius, which I bring up a lot on this show, doing the things that we love doing, mind building relationships, doing the podcast, selling. That stuff is my thing. Strickland's is in process and systems and building the back end of our business. But mine was never, I want to learn spreadsheets and I want to learn editing and distribution and how to set up. I mean, fortunately, we've put so many great people on our team that do that neither Strick nor I. Now we oversee it. We didn't step out of the business, but we don't want to be doing those. At what point do you start talking to your business owners about, look, you're selling, you're delivering, you're marketing, you're doing all of these things. At what point do you talk to them about stepping away from some of those things and putting the right people on the bus to do those other tasks?
I think the sooner the better. I think the majority of business owners hire too late. They just, and especially because, again, I mean, especially when you start your business, you're probably underpaid for a while, like you just mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not taking home a lot of money. And then when you really get it going, right, and you figured it out, and you're selling and getting good client results and things like that, there's a period of time where you start making good money and you're like, well, I want to keep that. I don't want to hire anybody yet, right? And then you get to the point where you're making really good money, but you work yourself up, more hours,
Right.
and all of a sudden you start creeping 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hour weeks.
It repeats itself like at the beginning.
Yep. And, to me, I think if you start getting above that 50, 60 hours a week, I mean, realistically, I think for most people, those kind of hours are not sustainable long term.
Right.
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 Just for the things that you've got going on, probably family, spouse, whatever. Right. And so when you start getting to those kind of hours, then it's time. Okay, I've got to look at my days. Where is a lot of my time going? Where could I bring in at least a part-time position, at least 20 hours, right? And I think, the world that we're in today, post-COVID, right? Everybody wants to work from home, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of contractors out there that are available half-time, right? Just get started, right? And I think once you see what that employee or what that contractor frees up for you, then you want to keep moving and keep hiring.
I remember when we brought on Ashley, and I think Ashley's been with us for 4 or 5 years now. Ashley is our assistant for those in our community that have never heard us talk about Ashley, but we joke that Ashley actually runs the company. We look at it, she has been the best investment that our company made as an ongoing active labor who can do multiple things within our team. We always think everybody should have an Ashley. We brought her on originally as an assistant, but her role is so much more than an assistant and support now because she oversees so many things. that is a key. She is a key in our success and in our growing in our business.
For sure.
Are you brought on as an ongoing position within a company that is looking to fill the void of what you do with your services, or are you project based in that you come in, you do your job, and you leave the company after X amount of time? What's ideal for the company, and what's ideal for you as a business owner?
Yeah, so there are some CFOs out there that are, outside. They come in part-time. It is project-based, right? Those are more fractional CFOs. Our firm does not do that, and I really don't believe in that. The big challenge with that, or the big problem with that, is, you as a business owner, you have a challenge or a problem that you need their expertise in, right? You hire them on a contract basis. They're going to come in and they're going to fix that problem that you have, and then they leave and they're gone, right? And for anybody that's
in a world of problems have been you've been elevated. You create the next set of problems yourself.
Yep. I was going to say, for anybody that's ran a business for very long, you know that when you solve one problem, there's others that come up. And no, we work at our firm. We don't do that. We don't do the project-based stuff. We work on an ongoing basis with our clients. It is much more a long-term relationship. We're going to set targets and goals for at least a year out. So, I don't put my clients into a long-term contract. Either side can get out with 30-day notice. If you're not happy, I don't want you to stay.
Right.
Most all the time, that's not the case with our clients. But I tell them, my expectation is that we work together for at least a year, because that's how long we're setting targets for. And I set all of my clients up to have a minimum of a 2x return in profits on what they're paying me, which really means they're getting a 3x return because my fee's in there too. Right.
Interesting. I was going to ask you, what does someone expect as an ROI on investing in your services? And really, they're not investing in your services. They're investing in their ability to actually listen to what you have to offer, because it sounds like there's a formula and a process that you have learned, that you have experienced, and that works. And if they just simply follow your advice, it seems like it would be a no-brainer for somebody to get that type of ROI.
Yeah, absolutely. The system that I have and the system that I use, just full transparency with your audience, I didn't create. Actually comes from a much larger international CFO organization that I've taken my background, my accounting and finance background, and then have been trained to run this specific system. And it's been used on tens of thousands of businesses. So, to your point, that's exactly right. It's a proven process. We know that it works. There's no doubts about that. That's been proven over and over. And it really just comes down to, are you ready to take that piece off of your plate and really bring in an expert that's probably, no offense to anyone in your audience, but it's probably going to do the job better than you're doing it.
Understood. Right? No, understood.
Because numbers is not your thing, most likely.
Right. No, I totally get that. And for those of you in our listening audience trying to figure out a little bit more about what Ryan does and how Ryan does it, there's a couple of opportunities for you. One, I would say check out his podcast, the Net Profit podcast, so that you can actually hear him talking to other people that are colleagues of his. So he's talking the talk with other colleagues that do what he does. He has clients that are on the show, or people that are potentially clients on the show, walks through a number of the issues, talks to business owners about the relatable issues that business owners have. You may be able to pick up a lot of tools just by listening to Ryan's show. You've been doing the show for how long now, Ryan? Because I can't remember. How long have you been a client? I know you've done it a long time.
I think January 23. I think I started at the new year. So Yeah, so almost 2 years.
So
I
almost
believe.
2 years of his podcast, really interesting content. I've listened to a bunch of episodes of his show. He's got the right people to totally be relatable to the audience that is listening to his podcast. The other, and I'll put a link in the show notes for that, the Net Profit podcast. The other thing I want to share, depending on when you are listening to this episode, the air date is somewhere around the end of November and somewhere around the same time that you have a book come out. So talk about the book a little bit. So
I
what is it about, and what are you doing with it?
I do, absolutely. Yeah. So the book that's coming out is about our process and how we work with business owners. So you're going to get out of it some of the numbers that you should be looking at and reviewing. And then also, I dive into the hiring process and kind of vetting process, right? On when you decide, when you make the choice, or you make the decision to, really take this off of your plate and go out and start working with an expert. What should you look for? And I also give you some key hints in there on how do you know that it's the right time,
Mm.
right? So how do you know that you're approaching that time, that it's time to make this move? And what should you look for in the candidate that you look to hire and work with? That just along, like I said, along with, some of the key numbers you should be looking at. So it's going to help you and your business in a multitude of ways, right? Even if you're not ready to take that step and hire that part-time CFO, you're still going to find great content and some help in here on how you can run the system by yourself.
All right, and that book will be out somewhere around Thanksgiving of 2024. If you're listening to this before or after then just check the link in the show notes. We'll put a link to the book and to Ryan's podcast, Ryan's website as well. I want to take a right turn if I could, because I didn't prep you for this. So if you don't have an answer, totally fine. I'll edit this out. We don't do a lot of editing on this side, but but we'll figure out how to make it sound and feel good. I'm gonna have you name three things for me, Ryan, and I'm gonna do one at a time. As a business owner, there's probably some relatability to those in our audience, and I want to hear it from a CFO's perspective what these things are. So,
Okay.
as a business owner, if you could think about this for just a second before you answer, what is one thing in your business that you would like to delete? Either a task that you're doing, a process that you're all about, or a system that you've put into play that you're like, no, just not working for me. What is one thing that you would like to delete?
One thing I would like to delete right now is probably some of the administration stuff, right? Signing up a new client, send out contracts, all that kind of stuff. If I could delete that, maybe not necessarily out of the business, but
Right.
off of
Off
my
of your
plate,
plate. Right.
I would
Good.
love I would love to delete that.
All
That
right. That's
yeah.
good. That's a good thing. All right. And this will probably be very much in line to that, but let's see if we have a fresh answer to this. Something that you would like to delegate to someone that's already on your team, or a team member that you would be bringing on.
Yes. So my next thing to delegate will be an executive assistant. So some of their tasks there that I want to delegate are definitely calendar management, coordinating speaking events, coordinating travel for those speaking events. I'm just coming off a period where I hit 3 conferences in the last 3 weeks.
Oh,
And while coordinating all of that, it was a lot on my plate, a lot of hours. And so that is what I will be delegating next for sure.
nice. All right. So you have good answers for both the delete and delegate. And final one, this is to give you an opportunity to stretch those wings a little bit. One thing that you are dreaming about that you can hopefully accomplish in the next 12 months.
Next 12 months. Big goal is to double the number of clients that we're working with. This year, I've really spent some time. I've done some hiring myself,
Mm-hmm.
really on the fulfillment team that I've got, to really work with clients as we start, as they hire us, I guess you could say, right? And so I've slowed down and I've been spending a lot of time training them and really building them up, getting them to a level where they're ready to work with more clients. And so next year is going to be about growth and adding clients, and because we've got the capacity.
All right. All right. Well, all good answers. So, Nice Guy community, if you can see or hear from Ryan's answers, he's just like us. He wants to delegate some things in his life. He wants to delete some things in his life. And he's got dreams. We all have those things. Part of you reaching yours would be to engage the services of someone like Ryan who does what he does, Net Profit CFO. I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes. Ryan, so appreciate you sharing your message and what you're all about. Thanks for being here on the second time for Nice Guys on Business.
Of course, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and love to share with business owners and add value. So thank you.
My pleasure. Nice Guy community, never underestimate the value of nice. Again, special thanks to Ryan Kimler. All of his information, including access to his website, his podcast, and his book coming out very soon. We'll be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Fill up your week with the Nice Guys. The Nice Guys on Business are publishing 5 episodes a week. My master plan is working.